Well, when people ask me how resiliency happens, I tell them to understand how resiliency happens, we need to understand one key concept, and it's the concept of protective factors. Understanding protective factors has dramatically changed my life, both professionally and personally. Protective factors are qualities within an individual and environmental supports, to put it very briefly, that help an individual bounce back from adversity. The reason this concept is so important is that people have the idea that in order to help a child who's struggling succeed, they have to remove all the adversity. They have to somehow remove the risks, remove the stresses, and what the resiliency research says is that, in fact, what we can do and what we must do is to put into the life of a child or any individual protective factors. Protective factors buffer, mitigate, insulate the impact of the negative. And the reason I'm so passionate about this is that when I was working as a school social worker, I used to say to myself, what good is 1 hour with me? A student would have a session with me, a student would have a support group with me. I used to say that student has to go back to perhaps a very unhealthy family situation, back to a neighborhood where there was crime and gangs and graffiti, or back even to some of my colleagues that I didn't think were treating that student very well. And I used to discount the power that I had in my hour or in whatever amount of time I had with the student. What the protective factor concept tells us is that this is our power. This is how we help kids be resilient. When we can't remove all the negatives, what we can do is we can put in protective factors by doing two things. By seeing the individual protective factors and strengths within the student and helping them grow, and then making sure in our classroom, in our schools, in our families, we have the environmental protective factors. So we can do this. We can do it in every conversation. We can do it in almost every interaction with our kids. And it is the way in which students are resilient. And what it also tells us, this whole concept of protective factors, is that yes, it is ideal if we can remove risks and stresses, but not to despair when we cannot, because kids bounce back. Even if there's a lot of stress in their lives, the way they do it is they also have a lot of protection or protective factors. And that's what we need to focus on in fostering resiliency in kids. Yes. I developed a wheel because the visual of it, I think, is most beneficial for those of us that are trying to foster resiliency. When you look at the resiliency wheel, you put the child in the very middle. And the idea then is to weave around that child those 6 strands of protection. Caring and support is shaded in because it is the most valuable and powerful environmental protective factor. You'll notice as you look at the wheel, caring and support is in a foundational place towards the bottom of the wheel. From caring and support, genuine caring and support for a child, comes the other 5 elements of the resiliency wheel. So they grow, and I think they emerge from a relationship, an environment, a situation in which either the individual or the culture is genuinely caring of the child. So if I am really demonstrating caring and support, I am going to communicate high expectations. Of course I believe you can succeed. And I am going to want to hear your voice and want to listen to your choice and want your ideas and your passion and your energy in helping whatever problems we're dealing with. And I'm going to do everything I can to positively bond you to people that are positive, to activities that are positive, to hobbies, to places. And I'm going to set clear boundaries because I know you'll feel safe and you'll feel like I'm a trustworthy person if you have clear boundaries with me. And finally, I'm going to find the ways to teach you the life skills you might need. So how do you negotiate a conflict? How do you cooperate? How do you set a goal? All of those 5 come from that foundational environmental protective factor of caring and support. So that's why I developed the wheel, and that's how I see that they interact with each other. My first book was called Resiliency in Schools, Making It Happen for Students and Educators. What I've learned along the way as I've really focused on the resiliency wheel, contemplated it, and dialogued with literally hundreds of thousands of people about the resiliency wheel and these 6 environmental protective factors, is that these are 6 environmental factors that help every person succeed. So from the time you're born till the time you die, you will do better if you have in your life the 6 elements of the resiliency wheel. So it's a framework then for us to certainly look at putting into the lives of students. But I've also come to understand that as educators also evaluate in their own lives, or as families evaluate in the family life, how prevalent are the 6 aspects of the resiliency wheel. It helps everywhere. So it helps the educator, it helps the family, it helps the student, and that's one of the beauties of the model. I think that's one reason it's so popular, is because you can just take this wheel with these 6 things and you can just plop it down any place, in a nursing home, in a prison, you know, in a preschool, in a hospital setting. When people have those 6 things in their lives, they do better.